not exactly the color I'm going for. Hello and welcome to the channel, where I turn video games into glass. I finally got around to making this when the idea first came to me 6 months ago. The reason for the long delay is because, well, the state of the world kind of took a nosedive. It didn't take me 6 months to make this, it actually took me 2 days, but I didn't have the glass I needed before the world shut down. This is a Neuromod from the 2017 game Prey. So I've been through several iterations of the Neuromod. Certain things had to be changed due to limitations with glass and my own skill. But this is the final version that I've settled on, that I'm actually happy with, and could do without too much issue. I did add these clear pieces here, because this right here and this right here, along with this entire bottom half, are joints, which means that they would probably be the first things likely to break on this. My first thought was running some wire along the joint and then along the edge to hook up with other pieces. But then since I would only be doing that on a few select areas, that would kind of make the rest of it a little weird. So I went with the option of just adding clear pieces to prevent the joints from moving. The other issue is this electrical wire. On the actual model itself, they have wires on them, but that's 3D. What I'm doing is 2D. So what I kind of am hoping to try is using some old wire from, I don't even know what these things are for. But I'm sure I do not have the devices that these go to. So I will be snipping off the heads of these and trying to figure out how to attach them to the glass. Ideally what I would want to do is solder the wire in between a joint instead of like an edge, so it has something to hold on to. I've never added anything like this to any of my projects before, so I have no clue how to do it, but I'll figure that out when I get to it. I tried looking for a silver kind of gray color that would match the color of the Neuromod as it appears in-game, but I wasn't able to find anything that completely matched it at my local glass shop. I also looked at the kind of gray slash silver slash white glass that I also have. There is this gray, which is admittedly a bit too dark. Then there is this gray, which would work, except it's more gray than kind of silver. So what I ended up finding is this. This glass is a mix of gray and white, plus it also has this pattern to it. But I felt like this was as close as I was gonna get to what the Neuromod looks like in-game. Plus I do like the patterns that it has. Another issue is the color of the exotic material in the Neuromod. In the game it has this purplish color, almost blue. I couldn't find anything that was a mix of purple and blue, so what I've gone with is this blue, which you could arguably say it does work, whether you want to call the exotic material in the Neuromod blue, whether you want to call it purple, whatever. This was as close as I could get, so it'll have to work. I used regular scissors to cut up to the paper pattern outline. Then I used 3-bladed scissors to cut out the actual pieces. I glue the pattern onto the pieces of glass using Elmer's glue. I use a ring saw to cut the complicated or oddly shaped pieces that would be difficult or impossible to do by hand. I love the story in this game. It has a twist in the beginning, which I won't spoil, and was unlike anything I've ever played. Arkane Studios, the developers, created an amazing world. The amount of freedom to complete objectives is really cool, and is seen in other games that they developed too, including the Dishonored series. I did play a little of Dishonored 1, but didn't click with it as much as I have with Prey. I am also excited for their next game, Deathloop, which seems to combine elements of Dishonored and Prey. It is also interesting to see how Microsoft's acquisition of ZeniMax Media, parent company Bethesda who own Arkane Studios, will affect the gaming industry moving forward. Could we get a Prey 2? The grinder is used to smooth out the cuts and refine the shape. I have a habit of leaving a little more glass on the edges than I should. It's mostly because I want a little more wiggle room when grinding. While it takes longer to grind, it is better than over-grinding. Once I am happy with how the pieces fit, I wash up the paper and glue with water and dish soap. So my current plan is to have this gray, white, whatever you want to call it, wire go here, and this black wire to go here, which means I need to see exactly what is in these wires and how can I make it stick to the glass. I didn't have wire cutters, but I did the best with what I have. Turns out, there are a lot of tiny wires inside the larger wire. I figured I could leave the wires in, stick copper wire inside, solder both ends of each wire so only the copper wire sticks out, and attach that to the glass. But it turns out that didn't happen. More on that later. So both these wires have whatever this is, probably marking it, what kind of wire it is, what it's used for, all that stuff. I originally was gonna remove it, but I actually think I'll leave it. I think it adds a little bit more charm. Not that whatever these markings are in any way relate to Neuromods. Copper foil is wrapped around the glass and pressed down with burnishing tools to ensure a snug fit. An X-Acto knife is used to cut the corners to fold the foil onto the edges, though I can sometimes get away with just folding the edges over. I ended up having to foil all these pieces by hand and not use the table foiler because the pieces were too small and were odd shapes. Before I foil complicated or odd shapes, I put small pieces of foil on each side to prevent the glass from showing if the foil splits. This is called saddling. Foil will split if a curve is too sharp and leave exposed glass, though what counts as too sharp kind of depends. If I'm unsure if the foil will split, I saddle it anyway just to be on the safe side. An X-Acto knife is used to trim the saddled foil, so it lines up with the regular foil. I use push pins to make sure the pieces won't move before I can tack them together. I use 60/40 tin lead solder to stick the pieces together, applying flux before I solder. The flux allows the solder to bond to the copper. Otherwise, the solder won't stick. Once all the pieces are tacked, I remove the push pins and continue soldering. I make hooks using copper wire and attach them to be able to hang the piece once it is finished. Hooks are soldered in a joint because the weight of the piece is on the joint and not the edge. For smaller, lighter projects, you can get away with attaching hooks to the edge, but not on heavier, larger projects. When attaching the hooks, I should have put one of them in the joint where the red and gray glass meet, instead of where the two gray pieces meet. The Neuromod ended up being back heavy and didn't hang level. The placement of the hook made it so I had to use 2 pieces of fishing line to hang it up instead of 1, in order for it to hang level. My original plan to attach these wires to the glass went out the window, so I just flew by the seat of my pants hoping something would work. Attaching the gray wire was a bit of a challenge. I thought I could leave all the existing wires inside and just thread the copper wire through, but that didn't work because the wire couldn't bend 90 degrees and stay there. I had to pull out all the wires inside and use 3 copper wire strands to get it to bend and stay. I also abandoned the plan to solder the wire in the joints because I couldn't get it to look right. I tried to solder both ends of the wire closed, but that also didn't go right. I also forgot that plastic is easy to melt, and ended up melting part of the gray wire. Attaching the black wire went slightly better. Again, I had to pull out all the wires inside to get it to bend the way I wanted. The end result could have been better. The blobs of solder on the edges don't look too terrible though. I'm still happy with it, but if I do more of these in the future, I'll need to make it look less blobby. Once everything cools down, I wash the finished project with water and dish soap, then dry it off. I use a patina made specifically for lead that will change the color from silver to black. The excess patina is rinsed off with water. The final thing I do is apply wax to slow down the natural oxidation process. Something I didn't take into account with the gray wire is how much color it would absorb from the flux. The flux I use is a pinkish, reddish color. Normally this doesn't matter because it doesn't stain the glass. At least, I don't think it does. However, the gray wire isn't glass, and it ended up turning pink. Not exactly the color I'm going for. I tried getting all the flux off, but I don't even know if it was possible, since it seemed like the flux was absorbed into the wire itself. My solution was to use this silver Sharpie and color the wire. I did lose the words on the wire, but that's okay, as long as the wire doesn't look pink. This actually worked surprisingly well. I imagine this could be done with the black wire too, depending on what the base color of the wire is. The wire actually being silver instead of gray/white does work a lot better, even giving the wire a metallic look. If you want to know more, I have a tutorial playlist where I explain each step in more detail. I absolutely love how this all turned out. The gray glass ended up working perfectly, especially when compared to the red and blue glass. The wires even turned out looking pretty good as well, despite the issues with attaching them. It never gets old going from a paper pattern to the glass version. Even though I know in my head what the end result will look like, I'm still amazed when I finally complete it and see it in person. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you would like to see me make down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all through the next pain.